The steaming of hay is, in the most simplistic form, is a way to remove 100% of the mold spores found in all hay. If I can remove something that I know that is a potential cause of any form of allergy, and I can do it at a limited cost to the client, at no cost to the horse, and something I can easily manage, it seems like a no-brainer.
Well, the important thing to remember is that all hay has mold and allergens. And bottom line, the horse will always have some sort of detrimental respiratory effect due to that. So if there is a way that we can eliminate it, which is what the Haygain steamer does, there is no better solution to that problem. Even if you don't feel that your horse has any respiratory problems right now, they seem very healthy, they do their job, they compete very well. The bottom line is that all hay, even the best, most expensive hay, has mold spores in it and allergens. It's just part of the environment and the way that hay is produced. The nutrient content of the hay is not changed at all from steaming. We've had a lot of questions from people who have horses with Cushing's and want to feed them lower calories. And a lot of people soak hay because it does leach out nutrients. The steaming does not leach out the nutrients. So it's a definitely important difference from soaking that we want people to understand. Well, soaking hay, you lose nutrient content, and steaming the hay, you do not. Another important thing to think about is there's quite a mess with soaking the hay, and there are lots of different protocols as far as, do you do it for 60 minutes, do you use hot water, do you use cold water? There's really not a definition for the proper way to soak hay. With steaming, we have a set temperature that every bale gets to. You infuse about 3/4 of a gallon of water into it, and there is no mess. After you have steamed your hay bale, open up the steamer, there's no actual dripping water coming off the bale as you do with soaking hay.
Recently, on a number of our barn visits, the questions come up that, well, what about the other horses in the barn? We're treating one horse with Haygain steamed hay. What about the other horses? And from a veterinary standpoint, we know that the biggest cause of a lot of the airway issues is the environment, and primarily the hay. And so whether we're using the half bale unit size because it's a smaller size barn, or the full bale size of the Haygain units, or larger size barns, we can optimize the appropriate size unit for the X number of horses that are in the barn. Because we know that the other horses in the barn, they become a source of the inflammatory process for that respiratory horse that needs the Haygain hay. And what do we know? We know that the steamed hay can be fed to any breed of any type using any type of hay.
A steamed bale will last about 12 hours. That's what we recommend, that it should be fed within 12 hours, because again, now the hay bale will be out in the environment and could again get dust and mold on it. So you could re-steam it. It hasn't gone bad, but we recommend about 12 hours. You can feed the steamed hay immediately. It comes out quite hot, but the horses are very smart about it. And another thing from the veterinary perspective is that the horses will eat it much slower because it is very hot, and they'll take small bites, which is kind of the natural way for a horse to eat. Graze all day long, not pound their food as quickly as possible because they feel they're competing for their food. So it can be fed right away and up to 12 hours after being steamed.
What we found in our own horses from the nutrition side of the usefulness of the Haygain unit was that we could have horses on a set amount of calories every day. And the Haygain unit allowed our horses to optimize the amount of feed in form of hay that they consumed every day. It was guaranteed. I had less wastage of hay, which was instrumental for me from a veterinary nutritional standpoint, because I could tell myself and my wife, we could look at our horses and say, they need to eat 20 pounds of hay. But how do I get them to maximize the usefulness of 20 pounds of hay if they leave 5 of it on the ground because they don't want to eat it. And what we found, not only in our own barn, but in the patients that we treat, that those horses actually ate all of their hay. And once we calculated the amount they need to be fed, we found that down the road, with day after day of routine feeding of Haygain hay, regardless of the type, alfalfa, timothy, grass, orchard grass combinations, what have you, that those horses improved in their body condition score, their overall health improved, and the respiratory health, whether they had a problem or not, was definitely being optimized because we've reduced the potential allergen sources. From a veterinary standpoint, where I come from each day, the product came to me about a year ago, maybe 18 months ago, where I saw some sport horses utilizing the product, and I needed to get my hands wrapped around the concept of steaming hay. And I believe that concept has been around, at least here in the United States, for a number of years, but even overseas in the United Kingdom and France, it is a concept that's used in barns that nobody really talks about. It's just one of those things that we do. And so what is the principle behind steaming? It was what we really need to get down to from a veterinary standpoint. What sort of benefits can we offer the airway of a given horse? And then were there other benefits? And the nutrition side, the feeding side of horses that we all take for granted became an issue where a veterinarian could stand in and say, what can we do with this product to better manage our cases, not only in an airway standpoint, but also in the day-to-day life of those horses? And that's where the product has been most impactful for us. In the conditions that we commonly know as heaves, or used to be called COPD and now is known as RAO, recurrent airway obstruction, that's the chronic form of the respiratory diseases that we commonly work to achieve success in with the Haygain unit. IAD is the acute, the early onset, which is inflammatory airway disease. And yes, because the most common source of the causative agent for IAD and an endpoint RAO/heaves horses, the hay and the environment are the most causative agent or source of those allergens that set the horse in that condition, whether it be the IAD stage that becomes the RAO or the heaves horse, or the horse that lives forever as a very low-grade inflammatory airway disease. And yes, the Haygain unit will definitively remove the allergen sources out of the hay.